time we're trying this, and as you can see, we're going through the standard set of technical details. I sincerely think we have some good things to share today. I know that not all of you can stay for the whole session, and some people are going to come and go. Who've already talked with me, but all the sessions are going to be video recorded. I have 2 cameras to make sure we have, whenever you have a backup, technology doesn't break, or more often at least. And so I'm going to be putting all the sessions in Moodle. I didn't tell people that when I marketed this, of course. But so if you can't stay for a particular session or you just want to watch a session again, it's all going to be in Moodle. Essentially, it's going to be the exact same Moodle site we used for the timetable and other bits. But there will be hyperlinks showing, linking to the videos. So there will be more information coming up as well. So I'll get started. As I said, thank you so much for turning up. Friday afternoon, it's a very busy time for people. I want to briefly describe a bit about Learning Technology Services. That's a work group that I manage in the library, and we're responsible for taking care of Moodle. So that includes basic Moodle things, sign-in problems, can't see what you need, technical questions, or more advanced ideas like we're going to talk about in this seminar. I should actually say, Josh and Carrie, please raise your hands in the back. If you haven't met Josh and Carrie, there they are. They answer a lot of the questions about Moodle, so I at least want to say, take a chance to put a name to a face. If you have any questions about Moodle, there's the one email for everything to answer questions about small or large issues. I mentioned that all the sessions will be video recorded. I made a tiny URL out of this if you want to write that down. We'll actually have handouts. Where did I put them? Tiny URL, you can see that's LTS 2014 is the letters at the start. So, also get some handouts. That's the same, that goes to the same website that was in the mail shot that we sent out. I like to think this seminar is different than most, or at least different than many. I want it to be more than sort of watch and grow wise. I want this seminar is going to be watch and create your own ambitious projects. And I'm going to describe how you can submit bids for projects during this overview. We're not certain of all the details yet, but if you have an idea for an ambitious project in Moodle, we expect that you could receive up to £2,000 for some Moodle project for whatever way you want to use it. That's following the standard rules and regulations. That could be custom programming from ULCC. It could be some staff time so you can go work on this for a while or bring somebody in to help. And also, we'll be giving the successful bids. We'll be getting what I'm currently calling priority assistance. That's from my group. That's from computer services. I'll talk more about the whole bidding process in just a moment. I've also spoken with Nigel Brown and Andy Kent, and they have told me that successful Moodle projects, whether they're bids or not, can be used for promotions. Or no, they are trying to make it used for promotions. I'm getting good signals in that area. So I'm trying to create as many incentives as possible for teaching staff, administrative staff, even students, to create something in Moodle. If I can help with your promotion process, if I can help with a little bit of money, if I can help with some staff time, I really want to help with that. And I want to describe how all this comes together. Here's a cycle I want to apply each year. Here we are, the Learning Technology Seminar. After this seminar, I hope that teaching staff, whether you're here or whether you're watching it on a video, will submit proposals. 1 or 2 pages. I want to keep them short. I want to make it as easy as possible. Then there's a new group of course leads and work group leads called the Learning Technology User Group. They are going to prioritize proposals and allocate funding for them. I'm going to give about £10,000 of my budget to this process. Once the proposals are prioritized, and we will support as many as we can, and then staff will create the projects. projects will be evaluated, and then hopefully used in next year's seminar. And the cycle can continue. I'm hoping to increase the number of ambitious projects in Moodle. In previous discussions, some very good questions that were raised. What happens if I'm doing something in Moodle and I'm not a priority project? Well, I think we have an answer for that too. I want to make sure that my work group has a basic level of service that we have to stay with. And so if you're already doing something in Moodle, I'm going to do my best to make sure that these priority projects don't influence that. We must sustain a basic level of service, full stop. And we're going to continue to discuss this project in the Learning Technology User Group and in this, during this seminar. The money should be spent by July. That is the biggest time constraint on this whole process. I will be showing you a timetable. I think it's at the end of this presentation. I will be sending out more information next week. By next week, I hope to have the forms finished for how people will create bids. I hope to have some more guidelines available. I have to move fairly fast on this because the money should be spent by July. And I want to give staff about a month to write these proposals. A month to write a 2-page proposal, I'm hoping that's adequate. A bit more about the bids. The form is still being finalized, but it will likely be online and 1 or 2 pages. It'll ask for fairly predictable things. What's your aim? What are your deliverables? Which students will use it and how many? How much of an effect will it have? And that's not to say, by the way, that if you affect 5 students, that's entirely a bad thing. If you make a good case that we need to help those 5 students, or 10 or 20, fine. We just want to have some idea of the quantity and quality issues, or breadth and depth issues. The impact and student experience. How are you going to evaluate the project, the Moodle project? We can look at statistics in Moodle and see how often a particular resource is accessed by students. That's pretty low measure. That's just how often people clicked on that link. We would like the bids to make some effort to say, how am I going to evaluate the success of this effort? Key dates. The bid will ask for some key dates. Not a detailed project plan, but a few milestones so we have an idea of what's the pace of this. And more importantly, with some key dates. I spoke with Dave Idison earlier. He runs computer services. He said, hey, I'm happy to give some priority staff time of my people. It just helps if I know what the timeline is. Because then he can schedule his people, his staff, accordingly. And I have the same with mine. And if I know the dates of a project are, I can distribute the work much more carefully. If you do request funding, how will it be spent? A small budget description. And if possible, how will your bid help with low scores in St. George's Student Experience Survey? I want to talk more about that. Moodle gets 20,000 clicks a day. Students are looking at it a lot. It won't solve our student experience issues, but I like to think it can help. Here's some of the areas where St. George's could use some help with. I believe this is last year's student experience survey. Something about right, Sarah?
These are NSS questions, right?
Yes.
They are, so they're the NSS questions, and they're in the SCS, they're in this year's SCS.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is the report you gave me in a previous meeting.
Yeah.
I pulled out some here. This is the areas where St. George's is below our sector. I like to be very forthright about what we do well and not well, because then we can really work on it. I think here's some areas we can work on overall, and the items that are in bold and italics are how we can help in Moodle at least a little bit. For instance, we're 21 percentage points below the sector in feedback being prompt. There's at least 2 parts to feedback. People have to write the feedback, and then it has to be sent to students. Well, if it's sent to students sort of through different administrative staff with the best of intentions, it can go in a few different places. Moodle is one place where people can sign on and see feedback. I'm not saying it's the best answer. I'm saying it's one option to consider that your bids might help with. Another area that we're a bit low on. Changes in course teaching have been communicated effectively. Well, Moodle is another way to communicate changes about a course. Something you might have noticed in the last couple weeks or months is that we're now using Moodle more for communication. On the front page, we put up a couple messages each week. And we had something happen just recently. I think Carrie mentioned that someone in their online discussions in Moodle actually referred to those messages. I feel like we're actually, getting some communication done. A final item that might help in our survey responses is the criteria used in marking have been clear in advance. So it's the in advance part that might help with Moodle.
Can I just
Yes, of course, please.
These questions are in our internal student experience survey, but we're using them because they are NSS, which is the National Student Survey set of questions around assessment and feedback. So where it says below sector, that's correct because it provides us with sector information and measures us against all other universities who have to take part in the NSS as well. So it is a kind of national thing, but we're replicating those questions in our internal survey with first, second, third and fourth year students, so we're getting a heads up on the issues and how they impact on each year, so we can address those issues by the time they get to their final year and hopefully make some improvement there. So we're kind of using the questions quite strategically so we can get some really good feedback from students and hopefully make some impact on those negative scores. But assessment and feedback is the section of the NSS survey which is across the sector the worst performing. Students always give quite poor feedback in terms of assessment and feedback. So there is something around this, but there's also something around managing students' expectations about what is prompt, what the timeframes are, because when they're answering questions on feedback on my work has been prompt, they might expect to get it 4 days after they finish their assessment, when really we're working on 4 weeks after their assessment. So there's lots in here. But I think the important thing to realise is we're using these questions nationally because we need to, because we have to, because we're contracted to, but also we're using them internally to get some better internal intelligence around what our students think as well, so we can fix problems before they become national.
But those scores were actually last year's NSS for the whole of St George's.
Exactly. So, but when we run our internal student experience survey, which launches on the 6th of May, and we get our results back for that, all of that feedback is going to go into this year's NSS results working group, so we can see the internal results and measure them against the external results, so we get a much fuller picture around all of those NSS issues and wider ones as well.
And we'll be able to see it cohort by cohort,
yes.
So we'll know. Because one of the problems with MBBS is that it's the 5th year, the final year, who we're giving feedback. And for those of us who have them 3 years.
Exactly, and that's the thing about, that's the kind of bluntness of the NSS, because it's kind of 5 years collected grumpiness sometimes. But we're able to collect all of that feedback year by year, so we can see how each year is doing. So yes, that's going to give us the nuance that we need, I think.
So we're going to get scores per year for the NSS?
Yes.
SCS,
yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you. It's important. I think those survey results, they don't dictate everything we do, but they're important considerations. So I'm happy to hear more details about that. I mentioned it. Thank you. I'm happy you can say that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Here's a rough timeline of how I hope things will happen. For those of you who are the Moodle user group, you've already seen this, but I want to repeat. I first mentioned all these ideas in the 4th. That's why it's highlighted. I have met with the Learning Technology user group, as many people as I could meet with. Here we are today for the Learning Technology half-day seminar. My current plan is to have proposals submitted to the Learning Technology user group, including cost quotes by the end of this month. And then by the 13th of June, I hope that Learning Technology user group prioritizes the proposals, and then I hope that money is spent by the end of July. It's a rough timeline. Returning to what we're here for today about learning activities in Moodle and issues related to Moodle. Here's the most recent timetable. Actually, the actual timing hasn't changed, but I've added some more content to the topic description. There's been one change as well. Frank Steiner will be joining us at 13:30 in about 5 or 6 minutes via Skype. He's actually joining us from Edinburgh, so he's made some effort to participate. somehow it's appropriate that, and if we work with technology, we should be able to have a Skype presentation or two. So Frank will be here. Kim Claridge uses the Moodle scheduler in ways that I never thought someone could. She has been very innovative with the Moodle scheduler. She uses it for reserving, I shouldn't try to guess too much, rooms in the
anatomy. Yeah, live anatomy sessions.
But I'm hoping, like with all these sessions, you can say, okay, Kim's using it this way, but you know what? I might be able to do this. After Kim, Penny's going to show some innovative lessons or quizzes. I'm going to follow that up with some additional information about quizzes, assessments. Tea break at 3 p.m. David Winterborn is going to talk about online timetables and how Moodle content can be automatically updated, which is another way of mentioning cram. Sarah Breer is going to talk about copyright and learning technology. Copyright is becoming an important issue at St. George's. I'm now in the library, and one interesting indicator I've heard about is that whenever we put a PDF file that's a complete article into Moodle, what we're supposed to do is send a request to the CLA. They approve it, we get a form back, and it has to go with the file. That's the way it is. That's just the way it is. So far, to my knowledge, we have submitted exactly 0. We're sort of waving a red flag saying, audit me, audit me. Someone else in the library, his wife is also a librarian, and her site was audited by the CLA. It was a 3-day audit, and 2 of the days were looking in the VLE. So, I don't want to be up here and try to defend what we have to do, but I do want to be the messenger. And so, I'm very happy Sarah can come and talk about copyright issues. At the end of the session, I'm going to describe how you can use Moodle to combine features. Most features in Moodle can depend on a previous feature having done something, or a student doing something with it. And I'm going to talk about how you can link features together in fairly clever ways. And also give some final details on the whole process of submitting bids. I'm hoping that Frank will be calling us at any minute. Maybe he already has. I don't see him yet. But until he does anyone have questions or comments?